get us recording, as we've said. And just now, as you're all settling in, we would love to get an idea of the lie of the land in the room and find out how confident we are all feeling already about finances as students, as new or recent, soon to be graduates as well. So let's see if we can get this poll going. Awesome. So please do start to pop into that poll your answers for us to know how you're feeling in general, and we'll rerun this at the end because we'd really love to have those numbers increased and for you to go away from this feeling a bit more confident. So at the moment we've got there on a scale from 1 to 10, we've got 1 is not very confident, which is totally okay, up to 10, which is I feel very confident. And I can see right now as we're going through there, we've got a mixture, but we're mostly 1 to 5, a few at 1, a few around the 3 mark. So our aim this evening is for us to increase that and to help educate you around those topics that we all wish we'd been taught more about. And I know some of the vet team were, and getting that timely, good financial advice really made a massive difference to their career and their preparation around finances as well. So I think we've had most people answer that now, which is perfect. So I am going to end that poll, but thank you so much for taking part in that as well. Amazing. Super. So we have a lot to fit in over this next hour. So I'm going to hand over now to the fantastic AVS team that we have collaborated on this event with to tell you a little bit more about this event and also why they think it's an important topic for us to cover, because we have been lucky to work with AVS on this for the last few years. This is another repeat of this, which always goes down really well. And I know certainly Izzy, that has been a previous president of the AVS as well, has used vet use services and seen a difference as a new graduate. So AVS, over to you guys, and you can see on the screen the fantastic team that we've got here: Callum, Charlotte, Izzy and Jack.
Hello, good evening everybody. Really happy to have you all. It's great to see the numbers coming in, keep them coming. So would you like to know about pay packets? Would you like to know about income protection or anything else of that sort, negotiating, salaries? Please do pop in the questions in the chat and hopefully we'll get some of those answered this evening. So yeah, I really hope you have a great time. Feel free to message us directly or onto the chat if you've got any questions or queries. More than happy to answer them, and yeah, enjoy.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. And I'd love to hear really briefly from Izzy, who is a previous and I think lifelong now member of AVS, even though she has moved on from her role of senior vice president. But we were talking before this week and saying we feel like she's probably got AVS tattooed on her soul now. I'd love to know, Izzy, as now a recent graduate, what a difference this content has made to you.
Yeah, so like you said, I don't think I'll ever leave AVS, but VetU has definitely helped me a lot, and all the advice that I've been given I will definitely carry throughout my life as well. So a few months ago I, through VetU, had a financial consultation, and that actually got me really on track to sort out my income protection, which definitely came in handy when a few days afterwards I then injected myself with DHP vaccine and couldn't use my hand for a week. But it has really been useful with VetU, like even for working out how to budget and everything. A few of you might notice that I've got some blue hair. Through budgeting, I was able to work out how I could afford to do blue hair. And I've also recently just bought a new car as well, which again, I sat down with my dad and worked through all the finances and everything going in and out, and basically what we've spoken about on these talks and things, and literally made a budget for me and worked out if I could actually afford to get this car, how I'm going to be using it, if I need business insurance, if I'm going to be using it for work and things, how it's going to tailor into my new job, because I'm going to start a new job in a few months, things like that. And VetU isn't just the physical finance, it's also the future planning and everything like that, which has come in really helpful. So I've definitely already seen the benefits within just 8 months in practice. So yeah, definitely one to keep a hold of.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Izzy. And I know I am so envious of all of you being on this call right now, because when I graduated 10 years back, we didn't cover any of this. And that was such a fantastic share there to see just what an impact it has on so many different levels. like you say, we never know what's around the corner in this profession. And I certainly never knew that income protection even existed. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper today, because we are joined by some fantastic guests that we will introduce very shortly as well. And as Charlotte said there, please do pop your questions in the chat box. There is no such thing as a stupid question. This is a really safe space. If you're thinking it, then someone else is probably thinking it as well. And please do feel free to call out any jargon. If we're using abbreviations or terms that you're like, what does this even mean? Please ask, because we do say that we'll give a donation to VetLife for every bit of jargon that is used. So if you do hear anything that you think, hang on 1 second, you've used an abbreviation, you've not explained it, get it in the chat box, call us out on it, and we'll make sure that's really clear as well. So just before we do dive into the session today, I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about VetU and who we are and why we do what we do as well. So you'll see here, we've got the VetU team, and all of us are on the call at the moment. So we've got Matt Dobbs in the top left, we've got Paul Horwood, got Ebony Escalona, and myself, Katie Ford. And we all have got a very diverse background in different areas of the profession. We've got people that have been employers, we've got people that have been business owners, limited company owners, self-employed, freelancers, speakers, coaches, all sorts of things in there. So actually we've got a very varied background of knowing how valuable finances can be for us to be knowledgeable about, and also knowing what the next point of call is. You'll see that we are really keen on helping you embrace an independent you, and that is us looking after your health, your income, and your future as well. And we're going to be looking at all three of those things for you as a new graduate today too. In short, what do? We help members of the profession with education, support, community, and signposting on loads of different financial topics. So if we don't cover any of these things today and they are of interest to you, please do get in touch with us, because we've got some fantastic financial partners that can help with these. We've got previous events, we've got events coming up. So we cover everything: income protection, pensions, mortgages, savings and investments, accountancy, tax, side hustles, budgeting, life insurance, healthcare plans, debt signposting. If there is anything that you want more information on, then let us know and we'll pop our email throughout this as well. And then importantly, why do we do what we do? Because we believe that all of you in this profession work really hard for your money. And so infrequently are we told how to look after it. There is no module so far at vet school on how to look after our personal finances. We're told about how to talk about finances with our clients, but actually knowing about things like income protection is so important for us in the profession that we're in. Starting pensions early can be transformational. And these are all the things we're going to dive further into today as well. So we know that you've all trained for years, and we believe that everybody deserves timely, friendly, relevant financial advice and education. And that's what we seek to do as a group of 4 vets, and teamed up with some fantastic financial partners. So you can see us all here again in the corner, and just our contact details. Briefly, in terms of the education piece, we put on regular events. So these are for everyone. You can see the whole list here. You can check that list out on the link that we'll get in the chat box for you. They're all free to attend. They're all recorded. They all have time for Q&A. They're open to all. So please do share them if you think they're useful, because we're covering everything from mortgages, we're looking at pensions, we're looking at things like pitfalls in personal finance, people that are going down the locum route. You know, we've got you covered. So if you've got questions, we're the people to come to. We've got a fantastic group of financial partners that we work alongside, that we spend time finding these people because they understand our profession. So we'll come on to the fantastic guests that we've got for today's talk, but just know that anyone that we partner with, we've either used them, we've got someone that's used them, or we've spent time building up a relationship with them and that they understand our profession. So as you can see, we've got experts, guest speakers, partners from a variety of different areas. So please don't wait until an event if there is something that you want some help with after you've graduated, whether that's mortgages, whether that's any of these protection policies. Just drop us an email. You know, we're here to help you. And just before I hand over to Paul from the VetU team that is going to be handling the first section of this talk, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to 2 of our other guests alongside the AVS team who've given up their time for you this evening. We've got Ruth Downs, who's a fantastic financial advisor from Reflect Financial Limited that we've had the pleasure of working with over the last few months. She's absolutely no nonsense, down to earth, very caring. And then we've also got the fantastic Alice Barker that is an equine veterinary surgeon. She qualified a few years back now, but she is fairly recently graduated with insights as to how cool actually focusing on finances can be and what a difference it's made to her. So we're really looking forward to welcoming Alice to tell us a little bit about her journey as well, and what a difference it's made over the first few years in practice actually to make this stuff a priority. So Paul, over to you to start telling us what is on the menu for today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Katie. Yes, so what we're going to have a little chat about today as we get into the sort of nuts and bolts of the talk. To start off with, we are going to be talking about salary packages, how to start comparing them as the employers start to negotiate with you, start to chat to you, start to get back with an answer to your application and stuff. Now, the important bit is there are many reasons why you should or shouldn't accept a job, and it's not just salary. You know, it's obviously the location, it's the species types that you want to do, it's the support that they're offering or not offering, and probably most importantly, it's do you like the people and do you like the culture of the organization that you're going to go into for your first 1, 2, 3 years out of vet school. But putting all that aside, today we're just going to be focusing really on the financial aspects, but not ignoring the fact that there is a huge amount of other reasons why you should or shouldn't accept the job, not just pounds in your pocket. So what are we going to talk about and compare? Well, we're going to have a look at how to compare offers, how to compare different job offers. We're going to have a look at your take-home pay, because unfortunately, even when I qualified, I came out and they said, oh, you're going to get £2,000 a month. And I was like, brilliant, I'm going to get £2,000 a month in my pocket. Turns out that's not the case. There's an awful lot of people who like to dip their hands in and take a little bit of your salary before it ends up in your bank account, which I'd forgotten about. We're then going to, perhaps not the most exciting part of the world, look at budgeting. For me, I find it quite hard to do, but we'll have a look at some tips and tricks and how to improve that so that we can have a bit more control over our income and our expenditures. And then the important bit is we're going to get onto Ruth to have a chat about the expert, to have a listen to our financial advisor and the real expert skills that she has. Brilliant. Next step. Next slide, please. Oh, great. It's like Chris Whitty, isn't it? Just next slide, please, Katie. Grant, so obviously there is going to be a basic salary. They're going to waive a basic salary, the employer, at you of X thousands of pounds. But most employers also try and add a little bit of something else in there to try and entice you in a bit, maybe to make themselves stand out from the other jobs that are out there. It is changing, but historically in the vet world, we've been ridiculously tight with offering other stuff. Most salaries up until a few years ago, most packages were just the salary, and that was about it. And there were a few little bits and pieces perhaps thrown in on top. It's changing, but still, we are quite a long way behind a lot of other professions and a lot of other sectors where you hear about, very generous packages that come out there. But it is important to try and compare packages rather than just the basic salary. So pensions to start off with. This one's quite annoying. It's one that does bug me a bit, actually. If employers are saying, in their job description that they're giving you a pension, that's a little bit disingenuous. They have to give you a pension. By law, they have to give you a pension. Now, if they're offering you a much better than the absolute bare minimum that the law insists, then definitely they should be shouting about it in the job description. But just to say, we will offer you the absolute bare minimum that we are legally obliged to offer is a little bit annoying. But unfortunately, most job offers out there at the moment that I see are probably just offering the bare minimum pension. What that actually means is that you can opt out, but you have to give 5% of your salary, and then your employer will put 3% in. That's about £950 a year that they're giving you. So that's what a basic pension probably is as a new grad, is what they're offering on top. CPD, most jobs will offer you a little bit of CPD, I'm sure, but it's worth having a little look into that. How much is it? Me and Ebony often have a good chat about why people will never pay more than their CPD allowance. It's just a ridiculous thing. It's like, I've got £1,500 and I've spent £1,400 and I really want to go on that course, but it's 300 quid, so I can't go. But there's nothing wrong with topping up with your own money if you wish to, but it's worth seeing what the job is offering in terms of CPD. Be a little bit aware because certainly as a new graduate, and I'm a big fan of new graduate programs, intern programs, whatever you want to call them, 1-2 year programs that are out there. I think they're really, really useful and really, really good. But be aware, there are rumors out there that people are tying you in. They're saying that we've got a brilliant CPD package over the next 2 years, but what happens if circumstances change? What happens if there's a possibility that you might need to move jobs, move countries, etc.? What are the get out clauses? Just make sure you have a look in the contract, because otherwise you might end up having to pay back large amounts of money to get yourself out of that contract. What are there in terms of CPD? Are there clawbacks, etc. in that? Professional fees, you'll often see VDS fees covered and RCVS fees covered. They're not actually that much money when you look into it. RCVS is what I paid it today, 350, 360 quid. So is that a deal breaker? This one employer pays it and this one employer doesn't. It's only 360 quid over the year. So it's not quite as much as you might think it is. Other benefits, we'll come on to this one in a separate slide because it's complicated and probably we're not going to do it justice today in this webinar because it really does go into detail, but looking at benefits such as cars or vans or fuel or accommodation, perhaps a telephone that they pick up on, just what does that mean? Can I use it personally? Can I not use it personally? And benefit in kind, the taxman starts to get a little upset about some of these things and starts to jump in and take a little bit. I will come on to that in a separate slide because it is complicated. Bonuses, most new graduate salaries probably don't have a bonus scheme in there, but often it's becoming more and more popular as you become more qualified, that bonus schemes start to be offered. Is that something that you're comfortable with? Some vets are, some vets are not. That's absolutely fine. And also just have a look. You know, I could go, Callum, you want a job? Fantastic. I'm going to offer you your starting salary. I'll give you £1 million if you hit your bonus targets. And you're like, wow, £1 million? I love that. But I then make it so that it's almost impossible for you to hit your bonus targets. Okay, is that really that useful? So again, make sure you have a look at the detail as to what that is. And then again, becoming a bit more, oh, sorry.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you there?
Yeah, sure.
I've just got a really good question that's come in, wondering what the average starting salary is for most new grads, because you mentioned they're £1 million, but I was wondering what
Yeah, so I think that, well, the SPIVS survey has just come out, I think, over the last couple of days, and so we had a chat about this over the last couple of days. The starting salary is probably going to be around 34,000. Massive, there is going to be variation in that, but that is a rough starter for 10 as to what it might be. Be aware there will be obviously regional variations, etc., etc. But it seems to be from the SPIV salary that around 34,000 is what you might be starting to think of as a new graduate. And yeah, so and then finally, a bit of income protection, private health cover, other bits and pieces are now starting to be thrown in again. Very uncommon a few years ago, starting to be something to think about now. It's worth having a think about. Is it something I want? Is it something that I'm happy that my employer is providing? Because the downside of a lot of these products, health insurance, income protection, is that if you move, and most of us these days are never going to stay in the same job for the rest of our lives, the whole idea of starting a job and finishing a job in the same employment is probably not going to happen for those of us. And so the problem with that is the day you finish your private healthcare, or the day you finish your job, the private healthcare or the income protection is no longer being covered. So would it be better to take the money and have it in your own name, or are you happy having it in the company's name and provided to you? There were swings and roundabouts, pluses and minuses for both sides of that, so it's worth thinking about it. It's a bit like when you get a bank account. You know, you can have a basic bank account with absolutely nothing and you just get the bank account, or you can have all these wonderful extras that are added on. I've got loads of extras in my bank account, but do I use most of them? Probably not. So are they of use? Probably not. Some of them might be, some of them might not be. Next slide, please, Katie. Brilliant. Right. Let's start moving into the actual important bits. Like I said at the beginning, I thought that being paid £2,000 a month meant that I got £2,000 a month. But unfortunately, loads and loads of people dive in and take a bit. Income tax, the big one that probably most people or you already know about. this is just a tax on your salary, and it starts as soon as you earn over £12,500. Every pound you earn over that, the taxman takes 20p in the pound out of that. And so that's probably going to be most of you in your starting salary. But then fairly soon afterwards, you will hopefully be starting to get salaries in the high 40s and then into £50,000. And once you get over £50,000, every pound above £50,000 is then taxed at 40%. So 40p in the pound is taken off you. I think most of us probably on the call already know that. Interestingly, there's also this national insurance, which then jumps in as well, which is basically exactly the same as income tax. I don't know why it's not merged into one, for historical reasons, the government, etc. But anyway, it's another tax. It works in exactly the same way as income tax. It starts at £9,500 once you earn a pound over £9,500. And initially, the slide's right at the moment, but it will be slightly wrong in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. National insurance is 12%. It's actually about to go up in about a month's time to 13.25%, a little extra, just over 1% extra, and that's to pay for the fact that we're an aging population, and the government has decided they need more money to pay for social care and healthcare, etc., etc. So again, it's exactly the same as income tax. It's another tax on our income. Then you have to, it's not really a tax, as in you get that money back in the end, but someone takes 5% of your income away and hides it away until you're 60, 70, 80, 90, and then you get it back at the end of your life as part of your pension. So it's not really that you're being taxed, but you don't get to use it today for fun or household goods and requirements. And then the final one, obviously, as you know, me and Matt on the call were lucky that our student loans were extremely small. You guys, obviously, it's a lot more of an impact, and the student loan repayments will start hitting once you start earning over 2,200 a month, which if you end up on a normal salary as a new grad, it will start. You will be on £22,200 a month, is I think about £27,000 a year. Next slide, please.
Well, do you mind if I quickly jump in?
Yay!
It's quite interesting to hear how much kind of comes into your different packages and all the things that you need to consider when you're chatting to your employer about your contract. But do you feel there's much scope for, say, a new graduate to negotiate with an employer, and would you say there's any particular things we should prioritize?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. With the smaller the business, the easier it is to talk to the person who can actually make a difference. So if you are applying to a small independent practice, there's a good chance you'll be talking to the owner of it, and so they will be able to make decisions quickly and perhaps say straight away. When you're talking to a corporate, often they're a little bit more restricted or prescriptive into how much they can fiddle about or move, because obviously if you get an extra £1,000 and they're employing 500 new grads that year, why are you getting that extra £1,000? It's very difficult for them to offer more. And so often when you're just offering, when you're trying to negotiate salary, it's a little bit harder when you're a new grad and when you're talking to one of the corporates. But that doesn't mean you can't negotiate. So you might not be able to negotiate on the actual salary, but areas that you can negotiate on are, I hear a lot of talk these days about golden handshakes, welcomes. That's something that you can have a chat about. I'd very much like to come. I'm obviously one of the best people that have applied for this job. A couple of £1,000 moving expenses would be very helpful. Might be something you could use, because that then doesn't break their salary budgets, or so that might be something you might want to talk about. Again, the other one, which I really like, is they say, oh well, we're going to do once a year we will do a review of your salary, we'll do an appraisal, we'll have you in and we'll do an appraisal. We'll say that's fine, could I have one at 6 months? And that means that you then have a chance at 6 months to have 6 months worth of proof that you're a good egg behind you. So again, it's not giving you a salary increase, but it's bringing back from, instead of waiting 12 months to 6 months, to then have that salary review. So perhaps that might be something to negotiate on. I don't know if that helps a bit there, Callum. On that. Cool. So benefit in kind, these are really tricky and a bit complicated. Basically, years ago, rich people decided to try and use a loophole where they got paid less money, but had a Porsche or a Aston Martin or a Lamborghini. And so it was like, give me less money, I don't have to pay very much tax, and you buy me a flash car. And the tax man went, hang on, I see what you're doing here. And so the tax man jumped in and said, well, that's fine, but I'm still going to take tax out of stuff which I see as a benefit rather than an expense. And so really, generally speaking, if you need it for work and it's 100% for work, there's no tax on it, it's an expense. If there's a benefit to you, then the tax man will take 20 or 40%, depending on whether you are 20% taxpayer or 40% taxpayer. Even if it's free, the employer's given it to you, they will still then take that out of your income as if you bought it. So if the car, if they've given you £1,000 something for free, you are still going to get taxed 200 quid if you're a 20% taxpayer on that. So cars and vans are often like that. Fuel, that's personal fuel, not driving between calls. If you're an equine or a farm ambulatory vet, that obviously is an expense and is not taxed. But if you're using fuel for visiting grandparents and going off on holiday, that is. Accommodation's a tricky one, very difficult. It's a massive grey area. If you live above the practice and you're on call, you can probably claim that that accommodation is an expense. If you live in a practice accommodation down the road, away from the practice, it's going to be a bit difficult for you to claim that that is not a benefit. But that is a bit of a loophole there on that one. Next slide, please. So quickly, just rattling through what we think, what your take-home pay will be. I've made some massive assumptions here. We've just assumed your salary is 34,000. We've assumed you start in September, and we've assumed that you've got no other income or benefits and stuff coming in. Interestingly, you do better in the first year, but tax years run April to April. But because you start in September, you're only going to be working for half the tax year. And so actually you get all the benefits of the tax-free allowance and only get taxed on a small amount. So you are actually a little better off in the first 6 or 7 months until the first end of tax year in the first, which will be April 23 for you guys qualifying this year. Basically starting off then, £34,000 a year salary, 20% tax, £4,000 gone. National insurance at the new slightly higher rate, another £3,000 gone. Any benefits in kind, if you're a farm vet, it'll be the car. If you're a small animal vet, it might not be very much at all. Pension, it's not lost, but it's taken away and snaffled away for another 40 or 50 years before you see it. That's just over £1,000. Student loan then starts kicking in. And so your take-home pay, starting off and thinking, oh, I'm on 34,000, is probably about 2,000 a month to actually then take home and do with as you wish. Next slide, please.
This is where we were going to do a quick poll and just really briefly see how everyone is feeling about paychecks now that Paul has run through those for you, and just realize that this is something that you can come back to, you can rewatch, just see how you're feeling in general. I can see we've got lots of 4 to 8s coming up, which is good. Amazing. Super.
Cool.
Good. 5, 6, 7, 8. Brilliant. So we're already shifting up from that 1 to 5. And please know, if you're still feeling at the lower end of that scale, you can watch these back. We've got some resources in the digital delegate bag that explain paychecks in more detail, and we'll also have this recorded. If you've got questions, get them in the chat box as well. So I'm going to stop that poll there. Amazing. And hand back to you, Paul.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Just a question, Paul, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
It said in the chat, I get mileage with my contract. Should the mileage expense be taxable or should it be paid back by BACS?
So if it's to do with work, it's nothing to do with the tax man. It is utterly all about, you should get back what it costs you to do that call. If you're an equine or a farm animal ambulatory vet, or even if you're a small animal vet having to drive between clinics, driving to your first place of work, unfortunately that's commuting. You have to pay for that out of your income. But anything that you have to do as part of your job should be an expense, not a benefit in kind. Hopefully that covers that.
Can I ask another question?
Yay.
So do vets get paid for overtime, or do you just get your salary, or does this vary from contract to contract?
that varies contract to contract. Most people don't get overtime, but there's certainly, but depending on your contract, if you're on fixed hours, if you're doing, I don't know, 3 days a week, and they ask you to come in for a fourth day, absolutely. Now, it's a very interesting one about what happens in your contract, and it says you finish at 6 or you finish at 7, and every day you're finishing at 8 or 9 or 10 because of the workload that's coming in. That's a very interesting point, and it's a very difficult one to answer. I probably won't go into too much of it here, but it's sort of, is that voluntary? Are you wanting to stay behind because you want to see more cases? Is that beneficial to you? Is the employer taking the piss by getting loads of extra free work from you? It's a massive minefield. We might talk about it at the end, but that's a really tricky one to answer fully on that. That's okay. Cool. Quickly on budgeting. It's not exciting. I don't find, but it is important. The only time you don't want to budget is when you've got so much money coming in, you just don't care, and that's not a problem. Fantastic. I hope you get to that situation. But for most of us, we've got income and expenditure, and trying to make sure that we are balancing, or if we're in a great situation, slightly above in terms of income and slightly below in terms of expenditure. Many different ways to do it. In the digital delegate bag, we've got this financial health check sheet. We've also got a really awesome Excel spreadsheet, which Ruth has provided. Both of them you can have a look at. It depends how you like to play. If you like to print it out and write on a bit of paper, if you like to use an Excel spreadsheet, again, different ways to look at it. But what you're trying to do is stick down all your fixed costs. That's the stuff that your direct debits, your mortgage or your rent or your phone bill or your gas, your electricity, those sorts of things that are fixed. All your discretionary stuff that you want to do, and work out then, once you've added all that up, because you've already know what your income is, work it all out and see how much you've got left at the end of each month. And hopefully that's a positive number rather than a negative number. If it's negative, you need to have a little think about all of that disposal, all of those discretionary things. What are you going to cut back on? Because unless you've got vast savings, very quickly you won't. Very quickly with a negative, it disappears rather quickly. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, there we are. Excellent. So here in this situation, we've got 1,800 quid, 1,900 pounds a month coming in after tax. That's what's coming into our bank account. We've worked out and we've gone through our mortgage, our council tax, our utilities, our broadband, our TV, our insurances that we've got, car, life insurance, home insurance, etc., food, drink, the stuff we have to do, and also, other stuff that's important, clothing, hobbies, going to the pub, etc., etc. Worked it all through, and we've got about £200 a month left over. Fantastic. Key point, and me and Matt always have a laugh on this. This is budgeting. Don't budget too quickly in your first month. This is your first 100 days in practice. This is not your first 30 days in practice. The best thing to do is you enjoy your first 30 days. Do something fun with your first paycheck. Matt, what did you buy for your first paycheck?
30 days only. After that, start a personal pension. I spent a lot of money in the pub in the first month. I didn't buy a flash sports car, Paul. I don't know anybody who. What? Did anybody buy a flash sports car?
Yeah, I did. I went out and bought a flash sports car. But there we are. You've got to buy something fun, or go and buy a big screen TV, or it doesn't matter. But this is budgeting is more about the long term over the next, once everything settles down. You might want to pay off your final year holiday, credit card bill, whatever it is. Enjoy your first month, and then once you start to get into that regular routine, do your budgeting, work out if you're positive or negative, keep fiddling with it until you can be positive. And at that stage, we can then start having a chat with Ruth. So we're now going to hand over to Ruth in a second to have a chat about what you can protect. Our sort of 3 pillars in VetU, the 3 things that we bang on about, having a think about, actively thinking about whether you want to or not to protect them, is obviously your income. Because very little happens if you're not getting a nice steady income. What are you going to do if you injure yourself, if you get an injury or illness at work? So protecting your income, protecting your health if you're not fit and able. And unfortunately, vets, we are prone to getting a bite, getting a kick, getting this, getting that. You know, how are we going to get ourselves back to work and improve our health better, in terms of private healthcare, maybe, those sorts of bits and pieces, and your future. I know it's hard to think about it, but the earlier you start, the better your future, the better your retirement is going to be in terms of pensions, etc. So, as we always say in veterinary, you know, go and speak to a professional, go and speak to an expert. Same things with finance. So I'd like to hand over to Ruth.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So good evening, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you to the VetU team for letting me come and talk to you and communicate everything financial, including a few core areas for you today, such as savings, protection, and pensions. Now, I want to provide you with a few knowledge bombs and hopefully show you not all financial advisors are scary, and that I'm actually quite an approachable person. So please put in the chat if there is anything specific that you want answered. I'll have to go through things quite top level today, but happy to answer any questions individually at the end. And I've been trying to go through the chat as well and answer them as they've been coming in. I'm quite a visual person, so there's a few slides that I'm going to be explaining. But first, thank you, Katie. Who am I, and who do I work for, and why I do what I do? So yeah, as you know, I'm Ruth Downs. I am a financial advisor and I work for Reflect Financial. I got into this because I was unable to get answers when my mum really suffered bad health. And I reached out to financial advisors and they wouldn't help me because I had nothing to invest. And they said I wouldn't be able to understand it in the time frame. That miffed me right off. So I came back, I completely retrained and vowed that anyone that knew me would never be in that same position again. So when I say that all questions are on the table, I mean it. Anyone that's had a meeting with me, I always say the meeting doesn't end here. You can ask me any questions. So I work with a large company called St. James's Place. They're a FTSE 100 company. I think it's changed actually, not 148, it's near 160 billion client funds under management, which means that people trust us to look after their financial futures. But next slide, please. Thank you, Katie. Underpinning absolutely everything that I do as a financial advisor is protection. We need to make sure that you and your loved ones are protected. If we put a savings in place for pension or something like an ISA, and you couldn't work for whatever reason, then how will you pay for your bills that comes in every month like clockwork, let alone any pensions, investments, savings that you have in place? That's why protection is really important. So before I put any policy in place, something I will ask you to do is, have you got a rainy day comfort fund? We all need a rainy day fund, and we all need money in the bank in case anything happens. Next slide, please, Katie. This is me, New Year's Day 2021. I was that person that you hear stories about where the boiler broke down New Year's Day. But you know what? I had insurance, but it wasn't going to pay out for like it was about 5 days to a week. So I thought, that's it. I'm going to dip into my emergency fund and I'm going to make sure I get a new boiler in place and I get heating in the house, nice hot shower. We all know how important that is at the end of the day. And so that I was thankful enough to have all that set up so that I could do that. Look, it's so important. Circumstances, life happens, and you've all had these stories. Car breaks down, something like that. So look, I love a good budget, and hopefully I'm not just the only one, but having something in place to know where your income is coming in, how much is outgoing, and most importantly, what you have spare per month is so important. So please just take a couple of minutes to have a look at the financial questionnaire, familiarize yourself with it, and I promise you, you'll feel liberated afterwards because you'll know how much you have. Next slide, please. Thank you, Katie. And something that we don't often think about, but is super, super important, is what happened, like I've said, if you lost your main source of income. So I urge you to think about who earns the most in your household. Is it you? Are you the main breadwinner? Is it your partner? Protection, so important. It's rule number one, and I'll explain a couple of them to you. Life assurance, that's something in case you're no longer here and you want to provide a lump sum for your partner, or something to help bring up the kids if you've got kids, or it could be like to pay off a mortgage. So it's to leave something for your family in case of the event of your death, or say your partner's death. It can pay off debts, mortgages, things like that. And there's lots and lots of different forms of it. There's critical illness cover. So what's that? It's if you suffer a critical illness. So it would pay out a lump sum in case of a diagnosis of a life-threatening illness. So it will help you with like stressful situations, like maybe house renovations if something's happened, or unfortunately, if like the prognosis is that you wouldn't live very long, it might pay for like a dream holiday or a cruise. So that's what critical illness is for. Now, what happens if it's obviously something not as severe and you guys are at the front of all action? So what happens if you're kicked or bitten, or even like I was chatting to a couple of people recently who've been called out and actually had a traffic accident on their way to work. So it wasn't in their job, it was on the way to the job. It is vitally important to make sure you have your income protected. Now, policies like income protection only tend to pay out up to 60% of your total income. Because let's face it, if it was like the total amount of your wage, there'd be no incentive for anyone to go back to work. But it does pay for those most important bills, that come in every month, and it can all be for like the price of a cup of coffee. Please don't think it's unaffordable. Let us just look into it. A quote is absolutely free to get, to look into what you're able to afford, and see if it is something you can afford. Honestly, just ask the question. Private health insurance, that's for instance, if something happens, you break your arm, you need to go and see someone straight away, or it could be to just get physio, hospital stays, operations. Private medical insurance can cover all of those bills for you. And then there's something a little bit not as expensive, and these are healthcare cash plans. And a policy will enable you to claim back the cost of like routine healthcare, such as going to the dentist, opticians, or even kind of hospital inpatients. You get to claim back if you stay overnight. So at the end of the day, what price can you pay on peace of mind? Because when my head hits that pillow, I don't wake up at 3 a.m. worrying like what might happen to me when I go into work the following day and if something happens. And you also have wills, powers of attorney. Wills aren't just for people who are 80 or 90 years old. If you want your wishes known, then we also work with trusted professionals who can help set something like that up. Next slide, please. Now, onto the main concern for a lot of people that I talk to, pensions and savings for retirement. Let's do this. Okay, so for start, I love good pension talk. So for starters, what is a pension? A pension scheme is simply a type of savings plan. There's been a few questions in tonight already about it. It's a long-term savings plan to help you save for later life in retirement. And there's some amazing tax advantages with them because the government want to encourage you to save up for it. So how do they work? They're an awesome investment tool, and you can save some of your income regularly during your working life into a pension. And this gives you an income in later life when you want to retire or potentially just work less. That's the meaning of a pension, security when you're older. So how does it work with taxes, as you can see on screen? It's the tax relief. It's just incredible for pensions. When you pay into your pension, some of that money that would have gone to the government as tax goes towards your pension instead. And this can help reduce the amount of tax you pay and give your savings a bit of a boost for the future. The tax relief you get is given based on the rate of income tax that you pay. So majority of people on the call, and vets that I deal with, are in the basic rate tax bracket, which is under about £50,000. So you get 20% tax relief. And what does that mean? So if you look on screen there, you can see To get £100 put into a pension, a basic rate taxpayer needs to pay in only £80 because the government then uplifts it and the taxman gives you £20 to your pension pot. And higher rate and additional rate taxpayers, they get additional benefits as well. Next slide, please. So this is quite an important slide that I want to chat through. I bring it up on a lot of our talks. It's about the importance of saving for later life. The 100-year life is something that we all need to start thinking about and preparing for. Technology is advancing, people are living longer. So if you decided to retire, say at 85 or the usual 58, should I say, I mix those two up, 58, have a think, would you have enough to live off until you're about 100 years old? Because I can tell you, it's something that we need to look at. Just have a look at this slide. Just to explain it, if you were born, say midway up the ladder in 1977, you're expected to live until 93. If you were born in 1997, you're expected to live until 99 and so on. So as you can see, people are living longer, and that's why it's so important to start saving for a pension now. Next slide, please, Katie. So very quickly, another question I get asked a lot is, how does it differ if I'm self-employed to being a limited company? Now, if you set up your own limited company, you also have the option to make your pension contributions from your company. Doing it this way, just very quickly, it's classed as an allowable business expense, and the tax relief that you get is offset against the profits of your business via your company's corporation tax bill. So just to clarify, if you make your contributions yourself and not through the company, as majority probably will on the call, that is when you get the government giving you that extra uplift. And then I think one of the final slides, please, Katie, next. This is something that I said was going to come up about the importance of starting to save for a pension early. Like we discussed earlier, if you save or work for a company, they will usually provide you the minimum into a pension. This is fantastic. However, you've got to have a think about, you know, it is a minimum amount. Is it going to be enough to live off? And as a rule of thumb, if you want, say, £30,000 in retirement, for instance, times that by 20. That's how much you need to roughly have in your pension pot, or start to think about having in your pension pot to save up for that retirement. So this is the power of compound interest. And what happens here? Daisy at the top, she saved £200 per month at the age of 25. Now, Ken, he started a little bit later. So he started at 45, but he paid in £400 per month. So if you look at the orange line at the bottom, both of them have saved £96,000 each. Just Ken started a little bit later. Now, we've done a very conservative 5% growth rate on this illustration. However, what you can see from Daisy is that because she started sooner, all of her contributions that she put in regularly earn interest. And on that interest, it just continued to grow and be added back into a pension. And then she earned more on that and more again. Every single day earned interest. And that's the power of compound interest, because she had an extra, what was it, £210,476 in her pension pot on top of her £200 per month, which was 96,000. Because Ken started later, he only had just over £69,000. So that's the importance of why you should start saving earlier, because it's better to have start earlier and have potentially too much income in retirement than not think about it at all and then end up worrying how you're going to pay your bills when you get to retirement. So that's a very quick whistle stop tour. Very top level, happy to answer any questions individually, but I'd want to send you back to Katie, and I'll have a look at the chat and see if I can answer any questions as I've been going through that talk.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ruth. I can see we've had quite a few questions coming in, so I know you'll be fantastic in checking on those. And just remember that Ruth is really happy to chat with any of you. So if you want to note down these details, if you already graduated, maybe it's something that you want to chat about now, maybe it's something that you want to come back to when you're in that first job, but please know that we have so many approachable financial advisors. Ruth is a fantastic one that is always keen just to help you out. So we want financial advice to be easily accessible and not to feel like it's just something for people that have got a big investment portfolio. So keep getting your questions in for Ruth. Thank you so much for that. Every time I see the daisy diagram, I wish I'd had that back when I was 25, because that power of compound interest really does blow my mind. So thank you so much, Ruth.
Pleasure.
If anyone did want to book in with Ruth, we'll pop this in the chat box. This link, you can book a time slot that fits in with you. You'll see all of her availability as well. And the feedback that we get from Ruth's calls is always amazing.
And it's free, so take use of it. Use my knowledge. Just ask me about your circumstances.
Yeah, she's very, very generous in all the time that Ruth gifts to Vet U and to vet and vet nurse members, because you know what, we don't have anyone to ask about these things, and we may as well go to the experts, just like we'd advise our clients to do as well. So thank you so much, Ruth. And next up, we are delighted to be joined by Alice Barker, who is an equine veterinary surgeon, graduated from the University of Liverpool back in 2018. And we recently connected with Alice with a mutual love of finances and actually realizing how cool this stuff is. She has a brilliant, brilliant blog where she dives into all of these topics, which you can find at thisvetcan.co.uk. And we wanted to invite Alice on here for 5 minutes just to share with you why this stuff is so important and what a difference it's made to her learning about this and educating herself on finances as a veterinary surgeon on the ground, working in this field and knowing what a difference this makes. So Alice, first of all, thank you so much for being here, and please do tell us a little bit more about the differences this has made for you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to talk about this. I find it really interesting, but really had literally no idea about anything personal finance wise when I graduated as well. So it's been a bit of a steep learning curve. And I think probably what prompted me was really when I sort of finally sorted out my workplace pension, knew what I was putting in, etc., etc. When I got my little leaflet through the post, it told me how to basically calculate what I would end up having to retire on when I was older, and what my current input was and what my workplace input was. It wasn't very much at all, and it was a pretty much sort of kicked me into action to really sort of take action. And the thing is that if you do make time to work out your finances, learn about it, then you can make a huge difference for your future, really. And it's quite sort of empowering knowing that you can really change your financial security and freedom really in any time in the future. So yeah, I think that the main things for me, which have really only recently started doing for myself, was like Ruth was saying, personal income insurance is a massive one, and I only really started to look into it because of a vet taught to me through word of mouth, really. And actually, when I've sort of thought about it, about 4 colleagues of mine in the last 12 months have all been injured and off work because of it. So not even because of all workplace injuries, but outside of work and inside of work. So hugely important, and they were all off work for at least over 2 weeks. And it's something that you don't think about until you are injured, which is not great. And I think, especially as an equine vet and any large animal vet too, and even smalls, there's huge risk of injury. And I think it's something like on one of the BVA surveys they did, about 65% of equine vets got injured in a 12-month period, and a fifth of those had significant time off work. So really prevalent. At the moment, I pay insurance for income protection and critical illness cover. So that's what I do at the moment, and I feel pretty safe knowing that I will be covered financially. I'm secure. I'm still able to pay my rent, still able to pay into my savings account and pension, etc., etc. So that's a really big one. I can't really push that enough, and I know Ruth agrees, but yeah, it's so good. And I've got my colleagues who weren't covered onto it as well. So people are, 3, 4, 5 years graduated, and they're just finally sort of getting onto these things, which is crucial. And I guess the second thing that I have really got on top of that I've found, when I started to thinking about pensions, it sounded really boring, didn't really know what I was talking about, didn't know what I should be doing. But after sort of listening to lots of podcasts, which has been really useful, and discussing it with current sort of colleagues, I've started to increase what I've put into my pension, which is really easy to do. If you're sort of part of a corporate, I just emailed my HR, said how much I'm putting in now, because I had no idea. How much does my workplace put in for me? They will answer that for you, and then you can say, can I increase it to this amount? I've actually increased it from 5% to 9% this year, and I'm sort of waiting to find out how that affects my sort of monthly budgeting, and if I can do any more, if that's okay with me at the moment. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and hopefully will be able to sort of increase that. But on top of that, putting my own savings away into, so also saving into a stocks and shares ISA. So I've just got sort of into investing that after I've made my emergency fund, which is also super important and makes you feel really comfortable knowing that whatever's around the corner you can handle, really. So a huge relief, which is pretty much what financial security is. It's just knowing that you can pretty much handle what's around the corner, because you don't know what is going to be around the corner, and knowing that whatever happens in the future, you're sort of free to make decisions. If you want to move abroad, if you've got the financial security, you can do that. If you want to change jobs and you want to take a career break, you can do that. So it's really creating the freedom for you, and I just find that really exciting for this, and hopefully other people will get excited too. But yeah, and while I'm here, if anyone's really interested to sort of see a personal finance slide on vet life, then check out my blog, and it's I started that in the new year, so it's still quite early doors, but there's lots of things on personal finance and other sort of mental health, well-being things too. So if anyone's really interested in that kind of thing, it's just This Vet Can, and I've got my Instagram account too, which is thisvetcan_blog. But yeah, I think that's everything. If anyone has any questions as new grad life, then far away.
Oh, thank you so much, Alice. That was amazing. And I think you raised such a good point that as we go through our professional years, we know so many people that are unexpectedly injured. I know as the Vet U team, we can come up with a list, unfortunately, of all sorts of things that have happened.
It's not very far.
Oh, bear with, I think we just got an unmute in the background there, so I'll figure that out. Super. And again, thank you, Alice. We can't thank you enough for coming on, and please do check out Alice's blog as well. And you know what, when you start diving into this stuff, it has such an impact. So please don't underestimate any of the stuff that we've talked about. And if it does feel a bit overwhelming, just remember people like Ruth are here for expert financial advice that you can just book on a call with her and talk these things through. If you're not sure what direction to head in, I know Ruth likes to say that she can be your BFF, your best financial friend, and definitely the reviews that we've had through from those calls have backed that up as well. So yeah, be empowered by that. And again, thank you, Alice. That was fantastic. So just before we head into some questions and answers, I just wanted to signpost you towards some of the other bits that you can take from this, because we've had a few people asking, saying, do we get the slides from this? We don't normally send the slides out because all the resources that you'll need are usually in our digital delegate bag. So you've got all sorts of negotiation resources, you've got about your pay slip in there, there's some resources about working out your salary after taxes. There are loads of calculators to help you do that online if you want to get those figures similar to what Paul had on the slide. And obviously we've got the recordings so you can watch those back too. So please do, first of all, check out your digital delegate bag. Here, we've popped that in the chat for you quite a few times. It's got loads of stuff on there. So just favorite that, save that, come back to that as much as you'd like to. Also, you can see here, we've got our whole list of events. We've got loads of things on pensions in depth. We look into things like mortgages, we look at taxes, and we are always adding events on there as well. So please do keep your eye on there. You can register with us on our website. You can jump on the email list, which if you opted into that when you signed up for this webinar, you might already be on, but then we keep you up to date with all the events that we've got going on. And we love collaborating with our financial professionals and members of the community like Alice as well. And then finally, we do have the option there for you to book a call in with Ruth. So please do, if you've got questions, then go ahead and please take advantage of that, because we are so grateful to Ruth for gifting her time in that way. She can help you find policies that fit you. She can answer your questions as well. And I know one of the things that a couple of people had asked in the chat was about if they were planning on going and working abroad. I know that we can cover that in the Q&A as well, because sometimes we've got quite different rules depending on the country that we're working in and where you were a resident of originally as well. So sometimes they make things a little bit trickier, not completely undoable, but there are just different things for us to bear in mind. So just before we dive into Q&A, because I'm very aware of the time, but I know we do have 5 or 10 minutes just to get some questions out there as well. I wanted to quickly poll again to see how we are all feeling with regard to confidence levels with finances as a new graduate, soon to be, or maybe you are already graduated. We'd love to see where everybody is sitting now to see if we have made a difference. And even if you are still at that lower end, that is okay, because your next step now, you know that you're able to book in with Ruth, you're able to check the resources out. We've got all sorts of information there for you. So please just know, don't let any of these topics be a taboo. There are no stupid questions. So you can always get in touch with us, hello@vetu.co.uk. You can book a call in. So I can see now we've got some 5s, 6, 8s. Brilliant. We've got 45% of you are an 8 now. What a jump. So, and that is a massive thanks to AVS for collaborating on this event. Also to our fantastic guests, Ruth Downs from Reflect Financial, and to Alice from This Vet Can blog as well. So awesome. I'm going to end that poll there. And I'm going to head back to the AVS gang and see what questions we've had come in there too.
So I've got a question to start this off with. So for those of you that, or if I've already got a health issue already, is it worth getting an income protection and insurance? So how would I go about this?
Yay, I want to answer that. So yes, you can. Yes, you can. Please don't think because you've got a medical condition that you are not able to get insured. This is something that I do want to make sure people know about. Look, it's all individual. If you suffered with something, say in the last 3 years, then usually it can just be put as an exclusion to the policy. But it depends what you've had, how often you suffer from it, how long ago you've had it. So they'll either put it as an exclusion, or you might pay slightly more in your premiums, so the amount you pay per month for the policy. So yeah, please just get in touch, get a free quotation and find out if it's something that's affordable. I saw it in the chat. Please make sure that you don't just go to these quick sites that set you up, because often, yes, you can go and get them within 5 minutes, set up income protection, but is it going to cover you should anything happen? Because companies are free to take your money and take those amounts per month out of your pay packet, you know, or your disposable income, should I say. But actually, when you come to claim, are they going to pay you out? And, or just go, oh, well, you know what, 15 years ago, you didn't disclose that you broke a fingernail. We really needed to know that. So make sure that you do get a full over-round advice and make sure that you're covered, because it will be worth its weight in gold. It might be a little bit more time going through a fact find to go through all those questions, but I promise you it'll be worth it. Here endeth the lesson.
Can I just add on that, actually, because I think what I didn't realize until I was chatting with Ruth is that if you have a pre-existing condition, you can get income protection, and after a period of time, if you haven't claimed on it, that exclusion disappears. But if you do nothing, you don't have the income protection covering, and you still are not covered, which I was just like, wow, that's fantastic. So you could get a policy without the thing, and eventually after a couple of years you're then fully covered.
Yep, exactly right. Thank you, Paul.
We've got another question. Do you have any tips for negotiating salary in your early career?
Yeah, it's an employees market at the moment, absolutely, and it will be for a good few years to come. Know your worth. And like I said, it's very hard as a new graduate, but very, very quickly after you've qualified, within months, you are no longer a new graduate. You have a proven track record. And so if you can go into a negotiation, try and get as much financial information as you can before you go in there. Pre-warned is pre-armed. Do a load of preparation before you walk in there and do the negotiation. Most of negotiation, what people don't realize, well, most of negotiation is done in the days or weeks before you go in and meet your boss. Get working on how many calls you've done, or how many surgeries you've done, or how many this, how many that. Get some data to back up why you are worth X, Y, Z to them, and that will really help push through. Try and think about it from their point of view, not your point of view. Don't be emotional, be factual, and go in there and explain why you are a benefit and asset to their business. Finally, and loads of people, British people especially, we're just worried about talking about money. Don't. I think we need to be happy and confident to chat about money and go in there. Just realize, having been an employer myself, the cost of replacing a vet is £15,000, give or take. So if I don't keep you, it's going to cost me 15 grand. So I might be prepared to give you some of that for you to stay. Just something to think about before you walk in there.
And just to add to that as well, Paul did a fantastic 20-minute long session on this called Negotiation Scares the Hell Out of Me, which is a really good, useful, doable session, which you'll find in the digital delegate bag as well. So please do, if you're feeling that you're at a point where you'd like to negotiate, go and watch that first, because we've had fantastic feedback on that too.
That's really great insight there. Didn't realise about the extra 15 grams that you might have to spend. Now I know. So is there anything that undergrads can actually do before they graduate and get a job? I realise that might be a bit tricky, but I'm sat here in fourth year and I'm wondering, can I do something now before I start? Aside from attending these sessions, of course.
It's probably never too soon to start educating yourself on these topics, and actually you can practice things like budgeting even when you are a student, and going through like Ruth's financial checklist and adding in what you can do there. And actually quite often our results, there's a fantastic like James Clear quote that says like, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So if you can take advantage of actually putting little systems in place with your finances as a student, without meaning that you don't manage to have a good time and so on, but actually thinking about budgeting and setting little habits and being aware of where your money goes, that's going to stand you in really good stead. I know Paul and Ruth and Alice will have more to add to this as well, but I think that's one thing I wish I'd done when I was at vet school, would actually be empowered and take control of my finances there and then.
I'm wondering, as a student kind of coming to the end of my degree as well and end of final year, how we factor in things like student debt and student finances, and how that might impact your budgeting and finance, and whether the team have any tips on that front.
100%. It's just making sure that when you come out, knowing what your debt is, knowing how much you need to pay per month, and just the worst thing you could do is bury your head in the sand. Find out how much it is, what you've got and where, and then when you come out, making sure you've got a plan in place to start to pay that off. That's the best thing, and that the financial questionnaire will really help you to do that and get into a habit of doing it sooner rather than later. I think I had another one as well about savings. At the minute, I could see I couldn't get around to answering it, but there was one, and anyone can save, but rates are quite low at the minute for savings because of current economic circumstances. I think I just went on before this meeting. I think one of the highest I could find, which was an instant, well, more or less kind of instant access, was like 1.5%. But then it isn't great. Sometimes your banks can offer you specific rates. I know my NatWest one, they have like 3% for like a digital saver, but you can only save like £50 a month. So it's just good to keep an eye, because it's always changing. So just keep an eye on where has the best rates. Money Saving Expert, I'm a big advocate. I like it a lot. You can go on there, type in savings accounts, and it will pop up with all the latest ones and the latest rates. So it's just great to have a look.
It does look like we might have had let's have a little look. Another question that, sorry, AVS, I'm jumping in here, but I just spotted it and thought this is definitely a Ruth question. Do you know any resources for starting out investing? I'm thinking of opening a stocks and shares ISA, but worrying if the time is right and what to invest in, which just before I hand to Ruth, we did do a whole talk on investments, which I will go as Ruth is speaking and pop the link in the chat for you so you can catch up on that, because that's an hour in itself, isn't it?
100%. But I have to say, Matt Dobbs, please get out of my head. You keep putting in the chat everything that I want to say. It's fantastic. Yeah, a stocks and shares investment should be something that you leave for the longer term. So you want to kind of save into it. You have got access whenever you want, but you pay obviously to get it invested. Now, yes, it's not about timing of the market, but it's the time spent in the market that matters. So what the worst thing you can do with what's going on currently with everything with Russia, stock markets crashed. I had numerous calls from clients, and it was just like, it's okay. This is periodically, this happens with stocks and shares. It goes up, it goes down, but then it goes up again. COVID, it took less than a year to go back up and surpass where it was, obviously before everything hit. So you've just got to stay patient, invest for the longer term, and put something in place. If you want to know what your risk profile is, please just get in touch and we can go through what your specific attitude to risk is, and then you'll have more of an idea going forward if you want to do it yourself or if you want someone like me to actively manage it.
Thank you.
Just to add on to that, sorry, I have a question.
That's all right.
I have money in investments. Is it worth, and they're quite high risk investments, is it worth changing them to lower risk investments, or should I just keep it where it is?
Yeah, I had this conversation earlier with someone. Personally, I obviously speak to a lot of financial advisors and got investments myself. Leave it where it is, because once again, I saw a very interesting slide that what happens is you've got to kind of, a lot of the profit of when, for instance, your investments will earn the most interest is at certain periods and certain days. So what can happen is your investment can't boost and go back up if you're in a cautious one, because it will only go up slightly. So stay where you are, ride it out. You've had that risk for a reason, having it in the high risk, and just know that you can take advantage when all of a sudden the market goes suddenly back up again, and you'll kind of ride that wave on the other end up. But if you're only in a conservative one, you won't ride the wave as high, if that makes sense. So have patience, have faith, know that there's professionals that are dealing with this day in and day out, whether it's a passive fund, an active fund, whatever you're invested in, that's looking after this for your interests.
Thank you.
So I was wondering about Matt's comments on pensions. So I can start a pension right now.
How old are you?
21.
Okay, of course you can. Yeah, absolutely. You wanted to start a pension, you can start and save into one. Your company will be saving into one. Do you work for a company?
Yeah, kind of, but it is part-time, so I don't know how that would affect that.
Okay, so if you earn over a certain amount, your company, obviously if you're over a certain age, your company legally have to save into a pension for you. There's a wonderful thing called salary sacrifice. I think we'll have to bring this up in another different pensions one, but you can actually, sometimes it can help sacrificing part of your salary, because it comes out of your salary before national insurance contributions and income tax is taken. So it can be more beneficial to do that than setting up a private pension. But talk to me, have a quick conversation and we can go into it. But yes, you can. That's simple.
Great, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for answering those questions. I'm just checking on the time because I'm aware we've gone over. So I think we're probably best for us to start wrapping up, because I appreciate everybody's probably been in lectures or have had busy days in clinic as well. So first of all, we wanted to say a huge thank you, firstly to the AVS team for supporting and collaborating on this once again, because we always have such a fantastic time jumping in, answering your questions, and just knowing that this is a content that we wish we had back when we graduated. Secondly, a massive thank you to Ruth, as ever, for coming on and giving us very understandable, very doable, very caring financial information, education, and always opening that space for you to go and have a call with her or to drop questions. And as ever, thank you again to Alice too for coming on and sharing her insights as a recent graduate. Now, I just wanted to share with you on the side here a couple of bits of signposting as well. As you've seen, please do, if you'd like to book in a call with Ruth, you can do, or if you want to come back to that. I realise that obviously there'll be people at different stages of their career right now. If there's anything else that you want to see events on, you've got questions on, then email us hello@vetu.co.uk. Check out our other events. You'll see we've signposted the next two. In a week's time, we actually have a session just on sustainable investments and environmental, sustainable, and we're looking at the full range of good investments that we can make, where it's not only us avoiding our investments into companies that are maybe harming the planet, it's actively investing into companies that are doing good out there. And we've got a fantastic speaker, Dominic, that is going to come along and explain that. And he is an investment expert. He's an advisor that really knows his stuff and has given us some absolutely mind-blowing facts on the effect that where we put our money can have. So if that is of interest to you, please do come along. And if you know anyone in practice that you go back to that's maybe hearing about you talking about pensions and thinks, oh my goodness, is it too late for me? We're doing an event just for people that are maybe a little bit later in their career and are having a little bit of a wobble about whether it's too late for them to start a pension. So just before we jump off, we would really love to know what your key take home has been. Pop it in the chat, and I'm going to hand back to Charlotte briefly to see if there's anything else that she'd like to add before we do jump off.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much added everything there. Just wanted to say a massive thank you to all the speakers and the guests that we've had as well. Really appreciate having you guys here, and such good insight. I mean, I've been to quite a few of these sessions now and I learn something new every time, and I do forget some stuff too because there's quite a lot to take in, so it's definitely good to have a refresher, 100%. So yeah, any last questions, feel free to send us an email. Was it the, yeah, there is hello@vetu.co.uk. And yeah, see you again.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to stop our recording there.